Good afternoon. We're back on the record. The New York City Board of Standards and Appeals, public hearing for February 24, 2015. We'll continue with continued hearing item 22, 16914BZ, 325 Avenue Y, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Chair Paramoda, Commissioners, and BSA staff. My name is Emily Simons, and I'm with Simons & Wright, and I'm representing 325 Avenue Y, Inner Force Y. I want to thank you all for walking us and helping us walk through this process, and it has been a process. And there have been many steps to this process, and for the record, I just want to say that applying to the BSA was the first step to ask for a special permit pursuant to 7319 for a use group 3 school. Your approval is conditional precedent to obtaining the 47.03 permit from the Department of Health. Once the BSA issues the approval, DOH is going to thoroughly review the entire application to ensure that it meets all of the 4703 permit requirements. I'd like to emphasize that we cannot use the BSA approval unless DOH issues the permit. In addition, DOB and the fire department are going to thoroughly review the application as well, and they must approve it in order for it to go forward. I just wanted at this time to talk about a 207 resolution that made it very clear that your approval is conditioned on various things, that prior to the issuance of any permit, and this is a resolution that you did in 2007, the applicant must satisfy DOB's requirements for establishing the proposed use as a use group 3 school pursuant to ZR sections 1210 and 7319, that accordingly the proposed bulk of the building to be reviewed and approved by DOB, that the premises shall comply with all applicable fire safety measures as required and is illustrated in the BSA plans, and that the Department of Buildings must ensure compliance with all other administrative provisions of the zoning resolution, the administrative code, and any other relevant laws under its jurisdiction, irrespective of plans and/or configurations not related to the granted relief. What all this means is that anything that you approve today is going to be scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb. And that includes I'm sorry, I lost my place, it's late. And that includes the building of the building above the 3rd floor, which will be a discretionary approval of DOH, the fire department, and again DOB, like every single one of these other requirements. I would like at this time to turn over this session to Dr. Ellis, who's going to answer the questions that you raised yesterday. I was here at the view session, and you had several questions, and we're ready now to work with you, continue to work with you to bring this.
I just want to point out one thing, or maybe several things. We look at these applications in terms of whether you're unable to find space of adequate size to meet the programmatic needs of the school. If the 4th floor cannot be occupied for school purposes, it means that this is not the space that's adequate to meet your needs, or you don't need as much space to meet your needs. Therefore, you're not making the basic finding that you were unable to find space adequate to meet your needs. So actually, we can't wait to find out whether the 4th floor is legally occupied. So it's integral to our analysis.
Okay, well, I think that Dr. Ellis may have a very good answer to that question. So, or that, I'm sorry, that statement. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. My name is Dr. Gary Bornellis. I am the CEO and Executive Director for Interforce TOTS. And to address the question that was just placed on the floor regarding whether or not you can use the 4th floor for a school, there is no question that, yes, it can be used. Article 47.4 actually addresses for the preschoolers that for preschoolers up to the age of preschool group, which is birth to 3 years of age, they cannot be above the 4th floor. I mean, above the 3rd floor and below. They must be on the 3rd floor and below. However, for the school age group, they are allowed to be above the 3rd floor. In fact, it is no difference from what happens within a regular public school system or any other schools that's in the city. You can utilize floors above that. The older children have to occupy that. In fact, yesterday I made my way to...
Can I just interrupt you? I have Article 47 right here. It defines child care service first as any program providing child care for 5 or more hours per week, that would be you, for more than 30 days in a 12-month period, that would be you, to 3 or more children under the age of 6. So you're clearly child care service provider in this program, right?
Yes.
It says, no child care shall be provided above the 3rd floor. No child care services receiving a first permit after January 1st, 1989 shall allow children to utilize any rooms, areas, or other spaces above the 3rd floor of a building, except that the department, this is the Department of Health, may allow child care services to occupy spaces above the 3rd floor where the Department of Buildings and the Fire Department have approved such use, and the Department of Health has approved the applicant or permittee's evacuation plan.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's not what you said. So what you said is it's permitted. It's actually not permitted without Fire Department and Department of Building waiver after reviewing your drawings, and the Department of Health's waiver. So where are we?
Well, I think right at the point when we first started, that having 4-year-old and 5-year-olds on the 4th floor is permitted.
By what?
By the Department of Health.
According to what?
Well, according to the rules that actually exist currently.
I'm reading a current rule. It says right here it applies to 6 and under, or rather under 6 years old. Children or more children under 6 years of age. So I'm reading the health code.
And I went, in fact, yesterday I went directly to the Department of Health, and I raised the same question that said there was a question that was raised regarding children being on the 3rd floor, above the 3rd floor. And that only applies for the preschool group, which is ages 0 to 4.
I'm sorry, I'm reading a statute. The statute is incredibly clear. It says it applies to children under the age of 6. And it says the only way that you can waive that is if the Department of Health, Buildings, and Fire agree that it's safe above, that there's some kind of an evacuation plan or however it works, that it's safe for the children to be in those upper floors. And we're not just talking about the 4th floor, now we're also talking about the roof, recreation area, which I understand is put back into the project. So we have a threshold question. I'm sorry if you're not showing me some other statute that renders this statute irrelevant, I can't go by your say-so. I have law
Okay,
here.
I would make reference to the regulation 414, which is what was pointed out to me by the Department of Health yesterday when I went to them and I raised this very same question.
414 of what?
Of the state regs.
State regs. This is New York City Department of Health.
Yes, and the Department of for the school Article 414, yes, school age program. The department.
They're not school age, though.
any child over, actually as of this year, any child over the age of 4 years of age is considered school age. That is what if you look at what the mayor's big initiative, UPK for all, they're now pulled out of the child care. And I agree with you that the law, they have to rewrite the article there, but as long as a child is 4 years of age, they're not considered to be school age. In fact, 5 years of age, you're considered to be a school age child. And they are judged and mandated under a different regulation.
What section are you citing to, the New York State something?
The New York State, 414.
Four.
414. 414.
4.14?
No, 414.
414.
I asked that question. In fact, I have...
414 of what exactly?
The statute name, what is it? You're quoting a section, but give us the heading of it.
Division of Child Care Services of New York State.
I was looking at it yesterday. It's Article 414 of the regulations of the state. Now, they did give me I have the number here for the commissioner. They said that if there was any issue that you can call.
No, okay. So you're putting us in a really difficult position here. We're not the agency that grants child care services license, but this is a very difficult site. It's difficult for a lot of reasons. Many of them are environmental, but it's also a difficult site because we're not getting the information from you. We're trying to figure this stuff out on our own, and we're not child care service specialists. But happily, the city has a lot of those. That's why in my comments yesterday, it makes sense that you go to the Bureau of Child Care Services, you get them to look at your drawings and do a site visit. And actually, by the way, we had a meeting recently with another child care provider who doesn't have a lease yet for the site, who hasn't built out the site, none of that, who has to come to us for a special permit. He's already had a review by the Bureau of Child Care Services, who signed off on his plans and think that the site's a good location. So obviously, it's something that can be done before you get a BSA special permit. And it must be done before, because at this moment, we have no idea what's right. We have no idea if this is a safe place for the kids. I mean, we have opinions, but in terms of what Child Care Services thinks. So you can't...
And we did exactly that. In fact, on April 29, 2014, we actually had a visit from the Bureau of Child Care, which is actually a division of New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and their result, the inspection result was that the site is viable, which is what the mayor's office looked for in order to move a program forward. So in fact, that was actually done.
Do you have that in writing?
Yes.
And did you submit that to us before?
I believe it was a part of the overall package. And this is what usually happens. When you have, just as you described, that's exactly what happens. When you have an idea of actually having a site to utilize a space, you ask for the Department of Health to come and see whether or not the space is viable and it's something that we'll be able to move forward with. And what they do, they come out to the site and then they do a report on what are the things that you have to put in place in order for you to be able to get the license. Now, in order for you to do that, they list all the things that you have that has to be done on each floor in each area, and then they give a ruling whether or not is a site viable or not. If it is viable, they state that the site is viable. However, these are the things that you have to fix in order for you to be able to get the license.
We did not receive that.
Okay. I'll make sure that you get a copy of that. What they did, so on April 29th, the Department of Health sent out an inspector to look at the site. We shared with them what it is that we were proposing, and they said, because the place is not built out as yet, as you described, they said, here are the things that you need to do. And basically what they would normally do, they will go through all of their regs, and they will say that these are the things that you have to have in place before we would actually issue you a license.
So
Now,
like what?
Oh, they give you, there's a list. They basically go through whether they're looking at they looked at the rooftop play area, they looked at the surface, they looked at the signs, they looked at making sure that, you know, the fire departments, the regs, all of the various departments that actually have to come in the facility and then give a ruling on that. They list all of the things that must be in place before you could actually get approval from the Department of Health, from the Bureau of Child Care. And they provide you with that list, and they say, now, once you have completed this list, you can then request for the inspector to come back out. And what they do, they come back out with a checklist, and they go down the list that they have actually provided you with to make sure that you have met all of those benchmarks.
Does the letter have the name of the person who conducted the investigation?
It's public record, and yes, Russell, Inspector Badge Number 1757.
Does it
R. Russell.
Okay, does it have his contact information?
I can provide a number for.
Okay, so please submit that with the contact information for the inspector, and then we'll take it from there. We'll probably have to speak to him. But then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that we do have a threshold issue, because the Article 47 is what allows you to apply for this special permit as a school. And you've said consistently that you are a school under Article 47 of the
Yes.
New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Code. And so and yes, there may be a conflict, but does that mean that maybe only the first 3 floors are a school and then the upper floors are something else? And in which case that's a different project and a different question for the
Yes,
board.
that's
So I mean, I think that we need to suss this out before we can sort of go too much further down on
Right,
this.
yes. Okay, and another part of that, because we need to know, but the point is, so you're looking for exceptions to the 4th floor, and I haven't found them yet, and have you found them in the state regs? But just one second, you're looking for exceptions in the state regs. But if you're an Article 47 school, you're going to have to go to the Department of Health
So-
and Fire Department and DOB.
Yes,
And
correct.
so you need to do that. And you also need to have the drawings reviewed by the Bureau of Child Care Services, which is one of the services they provide, or rather that's part of their approval process, right? And you have drawings, you've had them for a long time, they're extremely confusing to us, and maybe, and I know, I suspect, and I made this comment, was that you don't clearly have an architect working on this who's familiar with daycare centers, because we see daycare centers where the programming is just right on and clear and we're done. But here, you make statements in your statement of facts about things that are going to happen. For example, scanning in the participants with their ID cards. It's going to be 700 kids arriving in some sort of sequence which we don't understand, and somehow in that tiny lobby they're going to be scanned in. It's just impossible, and it's because the planning from the engineer who's been doing your planning isn't related to your program. Ditto for the size of the kitchen prep areas. You're going to be having 2,400 meals arriving into 2 spaces that are 214 square feet. I don't know if you know what 214 square feet looks like, but it's not big enough to hold 2,400 meals. And somehow or other, then there's kitchen staff. I don't know where they're going to be, but they're going to be heating the food, cutting it, putting it in bowls. Where are they going to do that? In your 5-foot fire egress corridors? And where are the carts that you're going to be delivering all the food to people in, standing in the fire egress corridors? All that's illegal. And so it seems as if you desperately need the services of the Bureau of Child Care Services, looking at your plans to make sure that it's going to fulfill the safety requirements, at the very least,
Right.
for the children.
And I appreciate what you just shared with us. However, as you've said, that this commission really relies on the expertise of others, and this is something that we do know. For example, to address the question regarding the security and the safety within the classrooms, You are right. We're going to spell all of that out for you, but it's something that we do. For example, whenever, I think I shared with you the last time that we actually provide transportation for the children and that the kids are picked up. That was one of the things that I think this the team is aware of. When we pick the children up, in essence, once we have custody of the child, they are our responsibility. That's very clear. Once the parent turned the child over to us, when the child is turned over to our matron, they're actually physically looked over first to make sure they're scanned and screened to make sure that we're not picking up a sick child or an injured child from a parent. While they're on the bus, we have a checkoff list where we are keeping track of who's actually on the bus and what class they belong to. So in essence, the check-in and the login for our children, that does not occur when they first enter the building. Because we have transportation, it's an extension of our program, and all of that is done while the kids are on the bus. So when they get off the bus, they're actually being escorted into, if the ones that are going to the early room, if it's early, or the ones that are being escorted directly to their classrooms. So now, when we talked about the scanning and the checking in of the children in the lobby, that's for the parents that are actually bringing in the children themselves directly. So in terms of the traffic, currently right now we're servicing close to 500 children within our program, and the lobby size is pretty, the one that we have now is a little bit larger, and this is something that we have a very good feel of, and this is something that we're able to do without hitch. Now, you raised also the question regarding the...
Well, let's just stay with that one for a little bit.
Just an interjection. I think I found what you were quoting before. It's actually called Part 414, and then the subdivisions on that would be .14. But it looks like it doesn't take effect until June 1st of 2015. So in your documentation, just say that this is from the future. I see where they're covering healthcare plan developed in accordance with the requirements for, kids make sure that they get out of the building, blah, 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 emergency plan. So it does cross-reference, I think, in some ways, the New York City regs. So I think you're just going to have to go through that and just make sure that you're covered.
Well, but still, we still have this problem where it's an Article 47 license, right. So unless it's incorporating this,
And I think we need to ask, and counsel, this should be briefed. The doctor's response to the chair's question about Article 47 was Section 414. But Section 414 incorporates the definitions of 413. 413 says explicit that no child may be admitted to a school-age child care program unless that child is 6 years of age. So you need to do some work here and figure this out. And it's rather late in the game to be doing this. This is a threshold issue that should have been determined initially.
Right. So, yeah. So, and then if we just stay with the scanners. So there was an amendment to the analysis about how many students arrived by bus. Originally, it was some huge percent, like 80%, something like that. Now it's down to 50. So it means, according to that analysis, only 350 kids will arrive by bus. So those are going to be scanned in. And the other 350 will be arriving with parents, presumably with strollers. I mean, so there we are again at the stroller crowd point, and then they have to scan in to this area that's smaller than the one you have now for 500 kids.
Well, scanning in the parents when you have multiple scanners, like what we currently have right now.
So these are handheld scanners?
No. What happened, you know how they get an ID card? The ID card is linked to the child. And we have scanners that's in the lobby. So what they do, they walk in, and when they scan it, it actually registers, says that this child is being dropped off and coming into the facility. So it's not, you're talking about, how long it takes you to scan something. That's the length of time that it takes. It's not something that's a real long, tedious process. And then they're actually being escorted to the child, then to the classroom. And once they're at the classroom, then they're handed off to the caregivers that's within the classroom.
So the parent brings the child up to the classroom?
In the mornings, yes. Yeah. You can have parents that actually, the caregiver, I should say. Sometimes it's a older sibling
brings the child
that
up
actually
to the,
brings the child in. And it's not as long as I think that you may be imagining it. Yes, in the mornings you do have, it's like everything else, right? When kids are being dropped off, like any school in the mornings there is a certain time period when you have an influx of families coming in, and then they'll actually go. So the scanning is not that, it is not that long or hard. And in fact, DOH loved the fact that we actually have incorporated technology into this overall process because we're at the forefront with that.
Okay. Okay. I just know, looking at small daycare centers in my neighborhood where there's, 15 kids, the baby carriages are all waiting in line for the door to open, kind of
Right.
thing. And so they're actually crowding the sidewalk, and there's hardly anybody in there.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things, the beauty about having a large program and the fact that we have been doing this for so long, and the fact that we do know that, there's a huge need. And at the end of the day, yes, in the morning there is that rush period when everyone comes in, but the benefits of actually having the children in once they're in far outweighs the slight delay that it may take, someone walking through the door.
So we're not arguing the benefits of sort of economy of scale and having lots of kids together and so on, but it's the impact of both the neighborhood on the kids and the kids on the neighborhood that we have to look at. So it's pedestrian impacts, traffic impacts, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what we've been concerned about. Plus you have air quality issues in this neighborhood, that we're really concerned about. And you have, therefore, kids out on the street in this, we're not sure what the condition of the air quality is yet, and we want them inside, right? So
Right.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of time when they're waiting to get in those morning crushes and maybe the evening leaves.
But it's not, I can assure you. And in fact, what I would do, I would welcome you to come in and see how we handle the influx of the children. Yes, it's a little bit busy, right? But it's like every place else. It's no different from, and I understand that we're talking about children versus adults. It's no different from any office building where you actually have a period of time when children are coming in. And is there anything that would actually be acceptable?
Well, that's why we're trying to understand the program. We're still working on that, right? So you said, for example, there is the early room and the late room. We don't know what that is and how many kids there are and where it is and all of that. And I thought that there's still a limit on how many children can be in a room at a time. So how many, is it 10% of the kids stay late, in which case that's 70 kids. That's a lot of kids.
Right.
That's, that's 4 rooms of kids.
This is how it works regarding, and I appreciate you raising that because I am so close to it, these are things that would seem, fundamental to me. The late room, the early room and the late room is designed exactly for that. There are parents that actually have to be at work early. So they would actually bring their little ones to the program early. So once they're dropped off in the classroom, each room is guided by a certain amount. For example, DOH, depending on the age group, if you have, let's say 4-year-olds, that you can't go over, let's say 12, 14 children. Our late room will typically have about 10 children. Usually the late room is when all the kids are being picked up, but for whatever reason, a parent may be running late because she got off work late, the train is not running. These are some of the excuses that we hear and the realities that they're faced with. So you may have, within the late room itself, you may have anywhere between 8 or 10 children waiting for their parents to come and pick them up because the class that they're in is no longer, the teacher, left for the day.
So the late room, though, is that one of the do they stay in their classroom? Are there other classrooms that are doubling as late rooms?
Usually,
not labeled,
right.
no.
The way our daycare works is that when, let's say our program ends at 6 o'clock, and usually by 5:30, 5:45, most of, I'll say maybe 85, 90% of the children are home or off. There's always 1 or 2 children in various classrooms that actually are waiting for their parents to come. So what will happen with the parent, the teacher that's in room A, B, and C, they may bring the child up to, and we have usually we designated 2 or 3 rooms in the front that's closest to the entrance of the building as the late room, so that when the teacher bring the child up, they all meet in the weight room, in the late room that's in the front of the buildings. And there's usually about 8 to 10 children in the
So
room.
you have 4 classrooms on the ground floor, but those are supposed to be for infants. So I'm assuming you can't put older kids in a room
No.
where there are infants.
Right, but the late room for us would not be on the infant floor. Because first of all, our infant rooms, you do not, outside shoes are not allowed inside of the facility. So in this case, the late room will be on our second floor.
On the second floor?
Yes.
So it's one of these or several of these classrooms on the second floor?
Yes,
Okay, and that's true for the early room, too?
that's correct.
They're the same? Okay.
Right. What happens, you have parents that need to be at work early, so they will bring their child before the teacher actually arrives, but we have someone there to meet the needs of the families, so they'll drop them off in that early room. And then when the teacher comes, the teacher will then, take that child to their room. And it's the reverse in the afternoon. And the same thing, again, right as you said that, you reminded me of a question I think that was raised regarding transportation. And you were accepting of the explanation of the onboarding of the children. But I think it was mentioned that we didn't explain the going home process and how that does. And that's something that we're writing out, and I'll get that to you. It's basically the same process, but just in reverse. And we'll write that out into the next response for you.
Yeah, and so the idea is that you don't have 700 kids standing on the street waiting for a bus to come.
No,
right?
absolutely not. No. You could imagine in weather like this. You see, it's a very well coordinated process, and it will be spelled out to you in the explanation. Because we're in contact with the buses where they are. The matrons are in contact with them. When they are there, it's a whole intricate process. Children on bus 5 get ready. They make the call. They make the rooms. Everyone knows where the kids are in bus 5 that are being picked up as the matron walks through. That they're being joined in line, and then it's a well coordinated, organized movement. And they're walking straight out and onto the bus after everything has been secured outside. This is what we do, and especially in cold weather like this, in climate weathers, you cannot have children outside, and that's something that we have a very good handle on.
Okay. So can I just ask you a question in terms of the process of this application? Have you been reviewing the materials before they're submitted? It's okay if the answer is no. So this is what I'd like you to do, because when you're describing the scanning process, that's not at all what it says in the materials. The materials say that everyone comes in, there's the security guard and a receptionist, and everyone has to be scanned in. That's what it says in the materials. So it leads us to believe you have 700 people plus their parents scanning and meeting a security guard in a lobby that's suitable for maybe 30 people. So, so if you had read this, you would have said to yourself, well, that doesn't really make sense. That's not actually what happens. And you would have corrected it before we got it. So please, so we don't have to keep doing this for the rest of our lives, read the materials before they're submitted. And by the way, for instance, you had that letter from the Department of Health for I don't know how long, and we never received it. Please look at the attachments to make sure that everything you think was in there is in there, okay? That's going to support your story, your argument, your everything, okay?
Yes.
You're going to have to take more responsibility than maybe is typical for a client, but you have to do it in order for us to be able to move this along, okay?
I understand.
I had asked yesterday about the number of pre-K students you could have in the school. I know in the statement it says 314, but again, I added up the number of classrooms and the number of students listed. I only came up with about 209.
I appreciate pointing that out, and that's something that we're in the process now of making full adjustments. And
So the number may come down of all the total
well,
students?
it's going to reflect. We're in the process of reviewing why the plan is not reflecting what it is that we thought, and we will be submitting new drawings and plans and everything to you. I appreciate the
Also, in
importance
terms
of
of the
that.
schedule of the students, I think your statement should agree with the statement of facts and findings, and it should agree with the plans, in terms of what number of, what age group and how many classrooms.
I appreciate that.
So
Thank you.
since we're talking about plans, and you're the director of the program, but you're not the drawer of the plans, right? And the person who translates your program onto drawings is ordinarily known as an architect or an engineer. Is one of those people here?
Not at this time, and we're
We
in the process.
specifically asked that the architect or the engineer come. There's a reason for that, because an architect and engineer are the ones who, I'm used to it being an architect, frankly. An architect is trained to get programmatic requirements from their client and turn it into drawings that comply with all of the applicable codes, all of them. And when there's disconnect between codes or among codes, they figure out how to reconcile the disconnect. So what it's clear to us from these plans is there's no one reconciling the disconnect, because it's not somebody who has experience doing childcare services. However, if we can speak to the professional whose signature and seal is on the drawings and is responsible, his license is on the line. If they make mistakes, right, you can sue them for malpractice, et cetera, we need to speak to that person, not to respectfully you, because the drawings are not reflecting the program. And for example, the classrooms are way bigger than they need to be according to what the code requirements are or the health department requirements are for each class. And by reducing the classroom sizes, you might fix all of this. There might be, you know, plenty of room to address all of these concerns and make the corridors not dangerous and have space in the kitchens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't have anybody to talk to.
Your point is well received, and I was made aware of that yesterday, and I went through the notes that was provided regarding some of the points that were made here. And I will say that it has not fallen on deaf ears. We will take a little bit more responsibility in moving the application forward.
That's the architect
And
slash engineer will attend these hearings.
we will. And regarding that, just to address the point, so that when you're looking at the plans that will be resubmitted to you, that DOH has, their regulation is at 30 square foot per child. That's what the regs call for. And there's a difference when you're looking at Head Start and Early Head Start. Some of you may be familiar with that. They are the gold standards across the country in what it is, how to run a child care program. Their regs actually calls for 35 square foot per child. That's what the Head Start requirements requires. Most programs are not able to meet the Head Start standards because there's a space issue. The fact that we have the ability to address that on one go, that's exactly why we are actually using the 35 square foot per child as opposed to the 30, which is what's being used. And everyone, they love the fact that we are actually using the larger number. Now, you are correct.
Is a portion of your, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is a portion of your program devoted to Head Start?
No, but
Are you in that program?
not at this time. But at the same time, we want to do what's best for the children. And if there's a gold standard in terms of operating a program, that's exactly that's the standard that we will always thrive to. And that's the standard that we're using. And you're correct. Some of the rooms, even with that, we do have, there are some rooms that is a little bit over the 35.
41 square feet.
With some of them, yes.
Yeah.
Because they were just looking at the number. But we're addressing that. What you have suggested has not fallen on deaf ears.
I mean, I just note things. I don't know what Head Start's rules are, but the Department of Health rules, for instance, are I think it's only one toilet per 15 kids, and in cases you have, well, you share it. So you have 3 for however many kids that is. 3 for 2 sets of 15, so like 1.5. And in some places you have 2. So I'm wondering why, for instance, you do that at the expense of space that you actually need for other things. You know, and all that goes to the planning. All that goes to the expertise of the architect to figure out how to plan it, and then makes it more persuasive to us that this is a carefully considered amount of space that justifies the special permit and why you're in this manufacturing district. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about this kitchen area. What is your real, actual plan for meals as opposed to what it says on that schedule?
Right. Regarding the kitchen and regarding the lunch, what you described, okay, let me share with you what happens when they deliver the food. The food, we're using an outside caterer. The caterer, when they bring the food, they usually bring them in, not in individually wrapped packages as one may think that you have to have, 500 individually packaged lunch. That's not the model that we use. The gold standard for running child care, as I've shared with you, is the Head Start model. And the Head Start model make reference to family-style meals, which is the one that we abide by, which is the one that DOH actually recommends. And the way family-style meals are conducted is that they are served in smaller container bowls, and you set, just like what you would do, family-style is exactly that. The students are actually involved in the planning and the setting of the meals. For example, a child will be responsible for getting the cups together, getting the plates, will be responsible for setting the sporks next to around, just like how you would set a family-style dinner, and you would have bowls. Let's say, for example, you have you have a chicken in one bowl, you have the starch, let's say potatoes or rice, and the vegetable in another one, and you have serving spoons. You use that opportunity to reinforce some of the things that they may be learning. You talk about measurements, you talk about serving, and the data is very clear. When a child is involved in fixing their own plate, they are more likely to eat what they put on their plate. So you encourage that. The teacher sits there and is encouraged to actually eat with the child. So it's not the adult that takes the lead, it is really the little ones that's responsible for that. You get them involved, you get them talking about measurements, you get them talking about getting a half a cup of juice, or are you going to drink all your water, and you have them all involved in the whole entire process. So that type of setup is beneficial to the children because they are learning all these skill sets. Most of these children that we're working with are coming from homes that really don't sit down and eat together. So that's the idea behind it. It is a proven model by the state. It is something that Head Start it's required by Head Start, and we do that because that is the high standards.
But how does the food get there?
It gets there by, once it's delivered from the outside caterer, they bring them in trays, large trays. They're not individually wrapped. They have them in large trays. Those trays are brought in by special containers. Those containers are like warm, and you may see them as they're designed to keep the food warm. When they're delivered to the kitchen, what happens during
Just slow down a second. How many containers in your current school arrive?
I would say it's about 4.
4 containers for 500 kids?
Yeah, well, the bags are about this deep, but each pan, you may have like 2-3 pans in a container, in a box. It's like, it's a bag, really. It's a big bag that actually have multiple containers in there, like the trays.
Those 4 contain the 3 meals, the lunch, dinner, or lunch, snacks, breakfast for the next day?
Yes.
Just in those 4 big things?
Right.
Okay.
It's okay. So what happens? It goes to the kitchen. Now, don't hold me.
How big is your kitchen?
There's
Not as-
2, I think.
No, how big is in your
No,
current?
he's my place, right. It's not as large as what we have right now. I don't know the square footage. I would be misspoken if I...
Feel around, like, is it as big as?
No, it's not. Let's say kitchen is probably
Like that?
cutting off to where, yes.
Got it.
Let me think this is. It's not large. It's a serving area, and it's been approved by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So the serving area is not something that's in question. It's something that we have approved, and we are operating under the guidance and the approval of the regulated powers to be. So once it's entered into they receive it in the kitchen. Before that, in the AM, each class calls in and tell the kitchen, like Ms. Smith would say, I have 8 children today, I have 5, and the various teachers call in. So they get a number of how many children are in each classroom. So they know that room A, B, C have X amount of children in them. Then they get the small silver bowls with covers, and they will share out the appropriate portion for that particular group. Now, once they have made the portion, they have carts that what they do, they place them on the cart, and then the entire cart with the meal is actually wheeled into the classroom. And then that's where the teacher and the students actually take over, where they set the table from family style, and they start getting everything prepared, and they use it. And at the end, so it's not the meals are being served in the kitchen and then being taken to the classroom. It's actually being done in the setting, which is what's recommended.
Okay, and where are the carts? How many carts do you have for the 500 students?
I think they may be about 5 or 6 carts.
Really?
I'm not sure the exact number, I don't know, but it's enough for them to be able to wheel them out where once the packages are prepared for the classroom, it's enough for them to wheel it to the classroom, the teachers take it off, and it's a constant cycle, especially around lunchtime, and then they do that. So addressing the lunch, the meals, that is something that it's being done. We're servicing 500 children. They get 3 meals a day, and they are, it's something that we know that works, and we can do that.
Okay. Again, speaking as an architect who does planning, I don't see how you do this with 2 little kitchens that are 200 square feet, because what you described is a lot bigger than 200 square feet. And but again, we're not the child care delivery specialists. There's this agency that does that. We really need them to review your plans. We just, we're stuck here.
Okay.
Okay. What other questions we had questions, for example, about, just want to say again, architect/engineer must come to these hearings, no excuses, none. We've already asked before, right? Okay, we had other issues?
I had a
The
couple.
environmental, I think,
Yes.
update would be
Yes.
very helpful.
Okay,
I had a couple of questions just about the building itself.
so, go ahead.
You give us a partial cellar plan, and I'm wondering if that's the extent of the cellar, or do you have additional space? Because it occurred to me that if you were crunched for space, especially for recreation space, and you were going to utilize the roof, and if the air quality was impaired, you'd probably need some sort of larger space than the multi-purpose rooms that you described. If there was the ability to utilize more space in the cellar for recreation, or even put your kitchen down there, it might be easier for you to have additional prep space and areas to store your carts and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering if you have that ability.
We will explore that. At this time, I don't think that's what's on the plan.
No, you're only showing us a
Okay.
really small portion, and I'm just wondering if that's the extent of the entire cellar, or if there is the entire footprint of the building actually has a cellar, and if that's the case, do you have the ability to utilize more of the cellar than you're showing? You only show a really small portion for storage of garbage, and it occurs to me that you might be missing an opportunity here, especially if you're compromised outside of the building. Which leads me to my second question, which was, I still had questions about how you're going to take the kids to the park a few blocks away, and whether you thought about going through the area, crossing over streets, and whether or not you need to talk to DOT about whether you need additional stop signs, or, what is the traffic going to be like? And I assume from what I'm reading, you're making a lot of trips during the day to that park. It reads like, every hour on the hour, you've got 30 kids going and coming. That's a lot of trips.
Well, I think one of the things that, according to my understanding of DOH, if we have a rooftop play area that's currently in place, at the time when the question was being raised about the rooftop, the elevator being able to go to rooftop area, I think that's when the park came into play. At this time, the fact that we have a rooftop area, until something says or there's a reason why we cannot utilize the rooftop play area, we are meeting well within the standards of what's acceptable if we're utilizing.
You would not be utilizing the park
Well, that wouldn't, I'm not saying that our teacher probably would not walk to the park or go to the park. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying according to what's required for us to provide outdoor space, that having a rooftop play area meets the qualification, the requirements from the Department of Health.
But you'd still have to address moving the children.
Absolutely. Your point is well taken regarding the having the the additional stop sign and even certain things within the community. Especially when it's coming from here, it gives us a little bit more leverage to do that. I would love that.
Yes, Ms. Simon.
I'm sorry. My name is Emily Simons again. I think there's been some confusion about the park. One of the questions that we were given to answer was whether there was a park nearby. And there is a park about 3 blocks from the facility. But it was never intended that this park be used for recreational purposes. I think that is a misunderstanding.
Sorry, you have to read your own submissions. The submission says, because there was no rooftop recreation area and there's a requirement that the children receive 60 minutes a day of recreation, where the multipurpose spaces are for inclement weather, and it said very clearly that the children would be taken to the park. So we get that from data that's given to you. So, sorry, please, these submissions
I will take a look again, but if that was the understanding, it was a misunderstanding, because the children will not. The park is not.
It was a statement made by you to this board. There's something different.
Exactly. So here's the problem. You're causing enormous angst on the part of your client, and you're causing us aggravation because there's no coordination. And if you don't read your own materials and you don't remember and you don't make sure that your materials say what you've all agreed to say, we just read what's given to us. We have the information, we read that, it makes sense that you go to the park. Other daycare centers go to the park. We often see those little buggies with all the kids on them. Makes total sense. So why wouldn't you go to the park, right? So don't understand even why you bring this up.
I think what I stated earlier still stands, that having the park as an option is an excellent choice, and we will definitely explore the possibilities, especially since now I can say I have, if there's needed to have additional stop signs or even crossing guards or whatever that would be needed for that community, we can make that happen.
Okay, so did you want to talk about the environmental issues?
Well, I just wanted to know where they are in terms of DOT questions and DEP questions, and when is it on the horizon that these issues will be resolved?
David Cuff, AECOM, environmental consultant. So we had some comments from DOT that we got in January, and we had a conference call with them, and we went through all the issues, and they gave us some feedback on the analysis that we prepared. Now we're reanalyzing quite frankly, some of the comments that they gave us causes us to reanalyze the traffic and pedestrian sections of the report, so we're in the midst of doing that right now. We should, over the next couple of weeks, we should be able to finalize it and submit it to them for their review and approval.
And how about the air quality issues?
Well, air quality and noise at DEP.
And noise, okay, all of that at DEP, okay. Because we understand that DEP inspected the site and checked out the automotive uses across the street and discovered spraying going on, so that adds to the VOCs in the air and gives us pause. We're particularly concerned because this isn't your domain exactly, but the statement of facts kind of describes how the building is made to, essentially says, hopefully in the future, when the build-out is complete, the noise levels will go down and there won't be an issue about air quality on the interior, but hopefully kind of isn't good enough.
Yeah, I think one of the DEP comments was that also, that you have to show that you're going to meet the noise
Yes.
requirements, not say you hope you do.
Right, and so I suspect, just because I'm taking a guess, that the windows that were installed for office use aren't of the highest quality, and so they probably are not great sound attenuators, in addition to air attenuators, or whatever that is, mitigators in the case of a VOC, so that it's very likely that the windows will need to be in some way adjusted by putting maybe something on the interior that reduces the sound, and maybe that helps to address some of the air quality issues, but we don't know.
Okay, well, I'll take it as two separate issues, the air quality first. Yes, there was some confusion about what was out there because these, some uses are operating without appropriate permits.
Right.
And DEP did go out and determine that there were 3 uses that were out there that are spraying or have paint booths for auto body shops. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, and we've had a little bit of a preliminary discussion, but what we're going to do is we're going to formalize in a memorandum how we are going to approach the, it's called a protocol memo, and how we will approach the analysis, and what are our emission factors that we're going to be using, what we're going to be assuming. What DEP has preliminarily told us that we can assume based on a former use that we have a permit for that's no longer there, we can assume that is be the case for these 3 places. Because basically what you need to know is, on an annual basis, how much paint are they going to be using, and how many cars are they projecting that they'll be spraying over the year. So without that information from the permits, we're a little bit lost, so they're going to help us in that regard. And so we'll put together our protocol memo with our emission factors that we're going to assume, and how we're going to assess these 3 places. Once they approve our approach, our methodology, we will then do the screening modeling to determine if there is any potential for significant adverse impact from these 3 places. That's not the end-all be-all. If there is another set of modeling that can occur afterwards, but we just take it one step at a time with DEP, and we'll do everything in conjunction with DEP.
Okay.
Noise. We did the interior and exterior noise monitoring, and inside the building we did find that it was above the 45 standard. It was about 49.9. We made some assertions. DEP did not, let's put it nicely, did not buy into our assertions, and so we are going to talk to DEP, and I've already talked to them preliminarily about ways that we can, things that we can do to attenuate the noise to bring it down to an acceptable level that would be acceptable to DEP. Mm-hmm. They've asked for some backup data, some of the noise logs from the monitoring that occurred. We provided that to, we're going to provide that to them imminently, or as soon as I leave.
Those are in terms of like interior finishes that are going to be added?
Well, the interior finishes argument was sort of, as I said, nicely squashed by them. So they want us to see the logs, and potentially what you would have to do is, as the chair mentioned, either approach it bulking up the windows, perhaps, maybe additional caulking, maybe you build up something around. I mean, I'm not a noise expert, so I'm sort of a little bit out of my range here, but there are things that you can do to attenuate the noise to bring it to what DEP would find to be an acceptable level.
Okay. And how long do you think DEP approval will take?
I mean, it's hard to speak for the agency. We'll get it to them. I know that Rory has been talking to them and pressing them to do it as fast as they can. I would say 2 to 3 weeks, but I'm just really speculating.
2 months at least to hear back? 2 months at least to hear back, we're thinking, right? Yeah. 2 months at least for this process, to finish the process, is what we're
Okay,
guessing.
that's what they say
Okay.
then.
Yeah. Assuming we get the right answers on the 2 month process, right?
And then also, DEP had earlier sent a letter that they wanted you to do indoor air quality testing?
Right, as part of the, that is more of a hazardous materials issue. They asked for a CHASP and for photo ionization
I
detection.
know, but they thought that the building wasn't built.
Right, but then they said, going forward, this is the things that they would like to
So you
see.
still have to do indoor air quality testing?
I thought that
You
it was
should
going to
clarify
be
that.
contingent.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess Rory was saying that he has to talk to DEP about this, but it could be one of the post-decision requirements.
Right, that's what I understand.
That's strange, but okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Yeah, you do? Okay.
And one of my questions actually is going to be answered. That was about the loading up at the evening. But the other question I had was whether or not this project is generating any parking spaces. And if so, where is it going to be accommodated?
Okay, when last time when we talked to DOT, they had asked us about the parking. What we said to them, and they agreed with us, is that actually the parking demand is really just generated by the staff, and the parking demand for this project is relatively low and would be accommodated in the on-street parking in the area around. It's a low-density residential neighborhood. Lots of houses have off-street parking provided already, so that we didn't feel that this was going to raise to an issue where there would be a significant parking impact.
Okay, so that's in the EAS, or that?
That will be in the revised EAS.
Okay, in the revised EAS, okay. Okay, any other, I think we're,
We hit it all.
okay, just keep up pushing.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Simon? Is there anybody else who's from the applicant who's speaking on this? No, I will ask, but I don't think we're finished with, I don't know if we're finished with our question. So the other
Yes.
thing is, the classroom count didn't match?
The classroom counts is, you were correct, there's 37, it's
And,
not 35.
And also, there is not allowed to be ever 17 students in a room. So there's a lot of rooms that have 17 students, so that needs to be corrected on the plans.
I don't think that's.
Well,
I'm
we're
sorry.
using, again, the DOH regulations in Article 47, and that's very clear that the maximum for 3 to 4 years is 15, and you have 17 students for 3 to 4 years. And unless we're talking about New York State requirements, and then I'm confused again, because here we are in Article 47, which is New York City. So again,
We'll have to take a
going back
look
to
at
the
that.
same old theme.
Right. I mean, you have a right to be confused, because even
Thank
folks
you.
that has been doing this for years are still running to the same thing. Department of Education, I'll use this as an example. In the UPK classroom, which I think no one here would question whether or not that's a viable program or something, within the UPK classroom, you can have up to 20 children within the classroom.
From 4 to 5 years old.
Yes.
But you have them for 3 to 4-year-olds, you have 17 kids.
They are right. The various, I'm going to provide you with the listing of what's allowed in terms of the ratio of adult to students and the maximum number
I
in
have
the
it, it's from
classroom.
the Department of Health, Article 47, says right here,
3 to 4, 3 years to under 4, ratio of 1 to 10 staff, maximum group size 15.
Oh, you're saying for the 3-year-olds?
I'm saying for the 3 to 4s.
Okay.
On the plans, it says 3 to 4-year-olds, 17 students.
Okay.
I don't see
We'll
how
correct.
that's allowed. And you have
Again,
a lot
that's-
of rooms like that.
Right. Again, I'm taking responsibility of looking over and
Please.
drilling deeper into the
Please.
floor plan. Those are all the things
I
that
beg you.
we'll do that.
Okay.
So that will all be addressed. Is there anything else that really is pressing that so I can actually
No,
encourage me to pay
I
attention to?
would say for me, and I'll let everybody else throw in their pet peeves. For me, the biggest thing is the plans need to be reviewed by the Bureau of Child Care Services, because we can't do that here. And we need to know that the 4th floor is legal, and we need to know that the arrangement and based on the program that you're discussing meets their findings, because we can't tell. And you have a lobby that's big enough for 5 people to stand in. So I don't get at all the lobby size. And I understand you need to have the nursery on the 1st floor. So that's part of the problem with this building. The rest of it's a gym. So there's nowhere for you to go on the 1st floor if that's where your nursery is. So I'm at a loss. And the only way that we can get some comfort here is if we got it from the Bureau of Child Care Services.
With the approval from the plans that we are proposing to implement.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else?
Well, my major concern is the environmental work. Mostly the uses in the area, and to just be sure that it's not going to be detrimental to the children.
Right.
Fantastic.
I mean, we're
Okay.
concerned about sort of scary, volatile organic compounds and children playing on the roof, breathing that stuff in.
I understand.
Or playing inside, breathing that stuff in from air intakes that are not scrubbed or whatever it is you do to protect the...
Your point is well taken.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, just from my end, just to make sure that the program that you are trying to describe and envision is really embodied correctly on the plans and described in such a way that expresses what your real intention is. And agreed, I think it just means you have to look at what you're giving us and make sure that, it passes all of the tests in your head that you say, gee, that's not how we operate it now, so gee, maybe that doesn't work. So just give us stuff that really represents what you want it to represent.
Right. So underlining, you personally, Dr. Ellis, review every slip of paper that gets submitted to us and make sure that it represents your program, your understanding of how you operate a facility like this that you know so well, and that somehow or other in your head you're figuring out how to add 200 more kids to, right? Because you have one for 500. Okay?
Great. So my understanding is we're definitely on the right track. We have a lot of tweaking to do and a lot of work
Yes.
to get this done. And getting it back to you with the plans being reviewed by the department, by DOH, the Bureau of Child Care, and that we're meeting all the standards of DOH. And you talked about the environmental as well as the program description plan within the body of the proposal that will be submitted to you.
And by the way, when you have the DOH or the Bureau of Child Care Services, they need to issue us a letter or something to say that they reviewed the plans and they're okay with the occupancy on the 4th floor. So that means you're probably not done there. You probably need to go, we have a fire department representative, so we can actually speed up that review from here if that's the way the Bureau of Child Care Services wants to go.
How would I be able to get in touch with the contact that you have if we need?
That you just
spoke
call
to
your
earlier,
project
did you?
manager. Yeah.
You spoke to him,
Oh, okay.
Anthony?
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, Anthony.
But I would say you probably have to start with the Bureau of Child Care Services because they'll pose the kinds of questions that then will be posed to the Department of Buildings and Fire Department.
Okay, fantastic.
This is going to take a while.
Well,
So, okay, so before, we need to see if there are any other speakers. Are there any other speakers on this item? Okay. So, yeah, so I don't have any idea how long it takes to reach out to the Bureau of Child Care Services, et cetera.
it won't be, I can answer that. This is at the top of my personal agenda because this is a project that I really want to see come to fruition. And it is something that's on the mayor's agenda as well. So, and the way the city is working right now is that when it comes to certain projects and getting the DOH and getting them to come out and do what will be needed, I think it has a priority because it is part of the mayor's initiative, and the fact that he actually fell short within the community that we are actually looking to work in, this has been given priority. In fact, he has allocated various divisions to really work with. There is a building of design and, what is it?
Construction.
Construction and design to actually help expedite certain components of the overall process, and the same thing with DOH as well. So we will be pushing this. I'm in the process of addressing the drawings because it was made yesterday, and yesterday, as I shared with you, not only did I got in contact with an architect, I also went to DOH, as I shared with you, and in fact, when the question was raised about it being a department that we should have gotten in touch with DOH, with the Bureau of Child Care, I was like, wait a minute, but it's the same division. I actually went to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and took a picture that shows that it's the department. May I approach so you can see
Yeah,
it?
sure, but what is that you took a picture of?
So that you can see.
Oh, you mean the day that you had the meeting, you took a picture?
No, of this. I went
Yeah.
there today.
Oh, you went there today? Okay.
Yesterday.
Okay,
to show
good. At
that.
least you went to the window and took a picture.
That's
Okay.
right. It's the same thing, so it's the same division, okay?
Okay, good. At least you know where to go.
Exactly, and my point is that this is of great importance, and if the question is being raised, it is my intention to bring you the answers that you're asking.
Okay. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
For your sake, I hope they do expedite everything, but we know we have an environmental problem that's not going to be less than 2 months in resolution, but we still want to be ready when all of the environmental issues are resolved. Hopefully they will be resolved, then we would be ready to vote on this, right? But that's only if you've been able to respond to all of our very unanswered open questions. So, here we are at the end of February. It seems to me at the very earliest is April 14th for a hearing because you have a lot of work to do. That's a month before your next submission. And I just don't see how you're going to be able to answer the questions. Is that okay?
We'll take it.
We'll take it, okay. So March 31 submission date, April 14 hearing. And bring the architect, whoever it is. Please make it be somebody who's done childcare services before.
New cases, item number 1, 9814 BZ, 404 Richmond Terrace, Staten Island.
Wow. Should be now.
Good afternoon. Todd Dale for the applicant. From review session, I know that there were questions raised about the application. Hopefully we can answer a number of them today or set forth a plan for the upcoming submission. In no particular order. First, wanted to clarify, I don't know if it was a specific question yesterday, but there's some confusion as far as the banquet versus catering hall use.
Right.
It is a banquet hall that's being proposed. Some of the confusion leads from the fact that the previous certificate of occupancy lists both uses.
Right.
The objection from DOB has both uses. The intent and proposal is just for banquet, not any catering use.
What's the
We'll
difference
revise
between a banquet hall and a catering hall?
on-site, off-site.
Really? But the catering hall has a
Catering hall could
bigger
provide
parking
food,
requirement.
right, but could provide food off-site.
it off-site.
Off-site.
Yeah, but there's a bigger parking requirement for catering. You would think it would be the reverse.
Yeah, it's a little unusual, I don't know.
No, that makes
Doesn't it say?
sense.
Right. So,
I'm just telling you what it says.
Okay.
French word.
We'll leave that for, yes, it's a French word, there you go. So,
take the subway.
in any case, we'll change the papers that we can to reflect the fact that it is the banquet hall use we're proposing. Skipping forward to that issue of banquet and catering and parking, we agree that parking should be measured on a occupancy basis. The figure of 1 per 8, I think, which was quoted yesterday at review session, we agree, comes up with about a total of 44. We've actually spoken to the project architect, and he is going to review the proposed parking to do valet parking as opposed to self-parking, which should allow for us, I think we could probably fit maybe close to 50 spaces in there if it was valet, which then would meet the requirements, but we'll amend the plans to reflect that parking setup. There were questions raised about the landscaping. The most recent set of plan did show landscaping around the parking lot. I don't know if there were other issues or questions about the landscaping that we can address, but the most recent plan.
I think you should show that it complies with the landscaping requirements.
Landscaping
there's
requirement?
certain widths and, types of planting. It wasn't clear whether it complied with the zoning regulations.
All right, we'll just speak to the architect as far as the landscaping.
There are some nice large trees on the site, and I just wonder if some of them could be incorporated into the landscaping plans.
We can forward that to the architect. Requirements, plus incorporating trees, sure.
And part of the comment about landscaping was also picking up on the community board's comment to use landscaping as a way to buffer the noise and crowds.
Sure, and we're very willing to do that. And I think that from the original set of plans that were submitted to the new ones, we did show much more proposed landscaping on the outside. And the property owner and operator, I mean, they're committed to screening as much as possible. So we'll review those issues.
Okay. Do you have plans for mitigating the noise, like when people get out and they're trying to get their cars and
sure.
honking horns?
Noise is next on my list.
There we go.
With respect to the noise, they, will amend the plans to put on the standard sound note about the 45 decibel, which is the standard legal requirement. But as far as the plans, I know that inside for any, they want to put like, I don't know what it is, but absorbing materials on the wall to try and mitigate that. Any speakers that they have to mount them in such a way. I know that the gyms that we deal with will mount them so that they're not right up against the wall, but to direct the sound in. Until they're up and running, it's a little difficult to know 100% what is going to be required until to reach that 45 decibel level, but we can amend our...
Sorry. A lot of times the amount of noise you're going to generate.
Sure.
And a lot of times with, DJs, it's very, very loud. And I think you can estimate from your noise and your wall construction what attenuation you're going to be getting. So I think you can make an estimate.
Okay. We'll speak to the architect and we'll add in our next submission more specifics as to measures that we're proposing to reach appropriate sound and noise levels. Beyond that, we'll definitely put on, we're willing to put the sound note on the plan to say, look, we'll meet that 45 decibel requirement.
What about outside, though? I presume no sort of amplified sounds outside?
No, no speakers outside are proposed. The only outside would be, as you said, the parking area. Since we're proposing to change it to a valet parking, there's going to be just general traffic leaving the site after events.
Will people be outside of the, like along, I guess that would be Richmond Terrace?
As far as it's proposed right now, I know the parking area doesn't have it. There is a front porch that faces towards Richmond Terrace that they're hoping to keep. And I assume if it's a summer event that they would like to have people on the porch. They're not going to propose any events like outside, like tent events or anything like that.
No, but I mean, just getting the car. I'm leaving the event. I have my ticket, I give it to the person standing outside the door and say, please get my car.
Sure, okay.
I'm asking, is that what happens? Or do I have to go around into the parking lot? I'm just trying to get an idea of the
we'll get more of a plan.
How much noise it might generate.
Sure. Since the plans that are currently there were the self-parking and we are going to switch to the valet parking, we'll get more detail as far as plans in order to mitigate crowds outside or anything while leaving. So we'll put some more details.
Thank you.
I didn't see anything on the plans regarding how you're going to handle trash.
We're going to change the plans. If you notice in the cellar, there's a number of different storage areas. Plans are going to be revised so that we're going to store trash within the building and only take it out for collection. So we'll amend the plan so there's a very specific trash storage area at the cellar level.
Refrigerated.
Refrigerated, sure.
That's our running theme these days.
And I noted yesterday that the site is kind of messy. Especially, I don't understand why there's those 2 very long trailers in the site and many, many, many plastic containers all over the place.
When we actually met with the community board, it was actually, I think this application was filed in April of last year. We had met with the community board subsequent to that. The site was in very bad shape. I know it seems weird, but probably worse than it is now. When they brought those trailers in, the trailers were brought in because they wanted to clear out some of the refuse that was in the building. They also wanted to leave materials on site because there were complaints at the time that there was a lot of graffiti outside, and they were trying to paint the outside to try and keep it, at least on the outside, in nicer condition. So I know that there's some cleaning materials that are actually stored in the trailer. We just spoke to the owner. They're going to try and have somebody there. They've had somebody try and regularly check it. During the winter, with the weather that we had, it's been a little difficult to take a look at the site, but they're committed to keeping the site clean. They're more committed, hopefully, upon approval. That's the best thing that we can do to clean up the site is, if this is approved, getting everything cleared out.
Also, I checked the tax map today,
Sure.
and it seemed to me that the 2 lots were merged.
The 2 tax lots, when this was originally filed, they were going to be 2 tax lots and 2 zoning lots, and then the application was amended to reflect 2 tax lots and 1 single zoning lot. But because of the fact that they were going to move it to 1 zoning lot, the thought was then they were reviewing whether they wanted to merge the 2 tax lots. End result, the proposal calls for a single zoning lot. The last time that I checked, it was 2 tax lots, 1 zoning lot. If the tax map has changed, that might just be the decision of the architect to make it a single tax lot and a single zoning lot.
Well, it's always been a single zoning lot since 40s when there was parking put on it that was accessory to the catering.
I would say, it's always been used together since the 40s, we would agree. I don't know the full history of whether they had 2 different zoning lots pre-61, what the reality is, but it's always been used as one. We're proposing to do it as 1 zoning lot for sure.
Well,
if the tax map has changed, we'll submit a new tax map. Okay.
So I think you might have to change your
Sure, we can change
story.
the tax map and just refer to the single lot number as opposed to the 2 lot numbers.
And it does show the widening line on the tax lot.
We agree, that's unusual.
It shows it on the tax line, but the
tax map
argument was
shows-
that the surveyor checked.
The surveyor
with
did
the
check.
Staten
and-
Island office, but the widening line still can potentially is there.
So that's the confusion in the application. You talk about a widening, but you don't show us any proof. So maybe there is actually, the borough president map has been updated to reflect a...
The most recent statement and that we submitted removed references to the widening line.
Oh.
So an older statement may have, the initial statement did refer to it
recent
based
was
on what we
your most
had.
recent?
But we're not referring to the widening line anymore. The surveyor we asked the surveyor multiple times and said, is it widening? He says the survey goes that that's accurate based on what the current
But then you
map is
refer to
available.
the city planning
We did
North
mention the
Shore-
fact that the North Shore study is there.
says that they may widen.
They may widen, but officially on the city map, that widening line doesn't exist. So
So
But
you're
it's
not
still on the
talking
tax
about
lot.
it.
we're not talking about it. We're not seeking any. We're not
You're
seeking
not
any
relying on
we're
it,
not
saying
relying
it's
on
a
the widening line
hardship, blah, blah.
at all.
Okay.
Okay.
And yes, 100%.
That makes it easier. However, what makes it easier still maybe in terms of your as-of-right condition,
Sure.
because you've got 1 tax lot and 1 zoning lot, which has really been 1 zoning lot all along. So if you were going to put a medical facility in the building, you'd have to use that other side of your zoning lot for your parking.
Correct.
So it makes it an easier analysis to say, if we did medical,
The
I
return
couldn't
would
build
be-
anything on that other lot because it's got to be parking, right?
Correct.
And then the next question is really if I did housing, Where since all of these little houses are on one zoning lot, now you've got more issues. You've got distance between buildings, you've got all that stuff. It may mean, I don't know, without looking again very closely at the distance between the windows of the mansion and the rear windows of the little houses, you may not have enough distance. So then that's another, you need to do an analysis based on it being on one zoning lot.
Right. As far as the as of right, we are definitely going to submit new as of right plans. The biggest issue, as you noted, was the fact of using the existing building for community facility would require parking, and it would require it on the adjacent lot. That said, the feasibility study that was presented, based originally on the two separate lots, we're confident that the figures that came from that would actually be a more viable use than a use that would have parking in the community facility and some sort of residential. Right. Still, we'll change it, but we think that actually, as you said, only benefits our point and the findings that were in the feasibility study. Just quickly, landmarks. The project architect did meet with landmarks once. He's scheduled to meet again in March. The issues that were raised were primarily directed towards there's a double door and the fence, and he's revising those issues. Doesn't expect it to be a bar to getting approval from landmarks. We're actually hoping that they'll allow us to keep the fence in the front, because I don't know if you've seen the wrought iron fence. It's a nice fence. So we're going to try and work that in, provided landmarks approves that.
Even Christopher Gray liked your fence.
Yeah. Regarding the lighting, we'll put a note on the plan that all lighting will be directed into the lot and no lighting will be directed out, and we'll show it as best we can.
The fencing on Westervelt is not in very good condition.
Agreed, but I think the newest plans show landscaping there, so I don't know how the fencing fits in, but it'll be improved for sure, either through landscaping, fencing, or some combination of the two. There was a question regarding the EAS, just to state we did update we previously had submitted a checklist. It was updated to the EAS to reflect that it's a type 1. That was submitted, so that's been corrected.
When was all this submitted?
The EAS, I know that we submitted.
Oh. No, but I didn't understand you. Because I missed that resubmission of the EAS.
November 20th.
November 20th? Really?
That's what we have in our records. We can resubmit it.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got another copy if it's not there, but November 20th it was resubmitted. So landmarks, we spoke about the lighting, the EAS, the lighting. There were also, I know, a number, the person who prepared the financial analysis wasn't available today, but said that took all those questions into account and will change things accordingly. One point that he did want to make, though, was that I think there may have been a discussion regarding the costs, like computer-generated costs. And he said that the service he uses, that's their online service, and it just gives a figure as opposed to splitting it out. If you want, he can provide the split out. It's going to come up the same result, but that's just current. Like the service he uses currently online has it. So
right, it's helpful if he provides narrative at the very least to show what it is he's talking about constructing.
Okay.
Or reconstructing.
Sure.
Renovating, converting.
What we're accustomed to seeing is actual living cost estimators who review the drawings and come up with a cost estimate, as opposed to, I don't know how this online thing works, but I suspect it's similar to what it used to be, where you just sort of went down a list and sort of found your line item and picked that, and that was what the report said stuff was selling for, but that's not normally.
It's the same figures.
Yeah.
But currently, instead of breaking it down, you fill out a questionnaire online with all of that information. So instead of going piece by piece, you put that information in, and then a figure is provided to you.
Right.
So it's
right.
in making it digital, some of the long sheets that might have been provided previously. However, I believe he said he still has access to that, so he can find it somehow to append it in there. But he just wanted me to make the point that the figure's the same.
Is there a general contractor involved in this project? You would think it's going to be construction.
I don't know if they have. I know they have the project architect. I don't know if a specific general contractor.
But there's eventually going to be a person who actually builds. That's the person who normally does cost estimates. right? Somebody who actually knows. See, what the problem with the computer thing is it's not a human looking at drawings. It's you putting in kind of sort of arbitrary data. And it's not saying in order to turn this into a plain vanilla box, for example, for the medical office, you need this many linear feet of sheetrock, you need this many lights, you need this many points. It's not doing that. So you're not getting a real analysis. That's why the cost estimator is usually, in fact, always a human. That way we can actually ask questions of the human. We can't go back to the service and say, where did you get that from?
We'll speak to the owner and the
Humans are always
project.
good.
Can I quote you on that?
And then I brought up yesterday about why you're putting tables on the second floor. It wasn't in the original C of O, and
Well,
the buildings department is calling it an extension or expansion of a use, and there's no ADA access.
Well, the issue with we're going to ask the architect to clarify the ADA access, so that is definitely on the list. As far as the second floor, even though in Department of Buildings question it is that, if you look at the CO, it says accessory offices. Since this was originally, when Knights of Columbus first took it over as Air Catering Hall, and it moved through various incarnations into the pavilion, which was the most recent use, it's always been just accessory offices, and they've been tied to the catering hall. The current operator was hoping to set up on the second floor the additional rooms. If you notice the additional rooms up there, one is intended to be a bridal suite, potentially. If there is a wedding, to give a separate area for the bridal party, to be upstairs. That dining area that's there, again, not in operation yet, but the thought is if they're not doing a wedding, which would take the whole site, or a larger event, that if they had like a meeting of a club or an organization, they could potentially have a smaller event up there without, and then a different event in the larger space. So that's the idea behind it. It could either be overflow, or it could be in a situation where they have two small events taking place at the same time. But regarding the ADA access, we are going to ask the architect to confirm that, because I do know that there's the access to the first floor, but just to see what the requirements are as far as the second floor.
Okay.
And just so you know, the only EAS information I have is an EAF, where you check the type 2 box. So
I've got a hard copy here I can give to you, but
yeah, please
I guarantee it was submitted. As I said, it was submitted.
You submitted it electronically, for example? Because if you didn't, we don't have it.
I don't have my email access here,
Okay.
but I do know it was submitted electronically in the hard copy. But it's very easy for me to resubmit it with the next submission. Okay. That's not a problem at all. I can also check with staff just to see if it happened. Just maybe didn't get translated into the SharePoint.
Could you also make sure that you've labeled all the spaces on both the existing and what your proposed is, so that we can look at them both? I think there are some spaces that haven't been.
Oh, spaces within the building, like what they're intended for?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just make sure that you've got them.
Fix the labeling in the plans? Yeah, we can do that. That was the list I had. I don't know if there's any other.
Sounds right. Oh, and then, well, the financial analysis, I guess, Mr. Rasmussen
Yes.
will listen to the video of the review session.
He has, and he said that most of those things are things that he can change. Some of them are going to be changed in conjunction with any changes we make to the as-of-right plan. It'll be necessary.
So you'll start, there's a different starting point there.
But we agree, I mean, as far as the as-of-right plan, showing parking for a proposed community facility use, they go hand in hand.
And then a lot of the comps need to be looked at again.
Okay. Regarding the comps, he'll review. Unfortunately, sometimes for the comps, he was saying it was maybe not the easiest site in the world to find comps for because of the proposal of the building, but he'll review them again, and if he's able to find other ones, great. Otherwise, can include a narrative as to why it's difficult to find. There aren't that many.
I mean, for instance, there are other landmark properties on Staten Island, one realizes. So some of them might have sold recently. Some of them might be used for banquet facilities, hotels, things like that. That's your closer comparison for the mansion than you know, just an old house built in 1910, which, by the way, this wasn't, right? So,
It was actually
that-
built in the 1830s, I think.
yeah, exactly. So, but it's been analyzed as a 1910 sort of wooden, nothing special house that's really old, so who would want it kind of thing. And on the contrary, it's this amazing Greek revival.
But I would also say
Yeah.
that because of that, it's almost impossible to find a comp for it.
No, but still, you can find a landmark building that has character to it, or something that does have character, that has a special cachet that is more attractive, and would, for example, for the comparables for renting to a banquet facility, you can't compare it to renting to a drugstore on the corner of Main Street. That doesn't, it's not a comp, right? It needs to be something that's special, that, right? And
Understood.
Staten Island certainly has those.
Understood. I mean, as I said, he said he would re-review the comps and
Okay.
do the best, but it's maybe not the easiest thing to find comparables
No,
for
no
compared
one
to
said
other
it's
sites.
Okay. That's why you're here. Okay, any other? Yeah, I know, just from here. Are there any speakers on this item?
Yeah, there's one there.
Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Sivion Sherwin. I live at 17 Carroll Place, which is the property directly behind the catering hall. I'm going to try not to be too repetitive. We do have noise concerns. This is almost entirely a completely residential community that completely wraps the entire property. And a catering hall creates a lot of noise. My husband is in the audio field, and he feels that the drawing should reflect the need of soundproofing. For example, triple glazed windows, or perhaps both double glazed interior and exterior windows with an air gap installed. Also, isolation for the walls and ceilings, etc. We feel like this should be reflected in the plans. When it comes to construction noise, we would like it to be considered also as a residential community, and that these noises only happen during the daytime, including internal construction, the use of power tools, etc. We would also like to have assurances that the use of the space will have a legitimate end time for parties, since it is a residential community, especially loud music ending earlier than has been proposed in the past. In regards to the trash, actually the neighbors in the community are the ones that over the past year have been cleaning the property and removing graffiti. That was just a personal initiative that the neighborhood took control of. Since the property has been in the current owner's hands, there's been a lot of garbage, there's been a lot of overgrowth, which leads to a lot of possums and raccoons running through everyone's properties that are adjacent to, and the garbage that is in the property itself does overflow into our properties, and it's a health hazard. In regards to the garbage, we're worried about the catering hall being able to address garbage storage properly and proper disposal. Regarding the parking, we understand that they would like to fully pave over the lot on 414, and as brought up in the landmarks building, our landmarks meeting last week, we would strongly encourage the owners to consider gravel or pavers. Also, the parking doesn't, even with valet parking, would not adequately suit the usages of the space, and there would be overflow in the streets in the neighborhood area, both with the people who work at the event locale and also the guests. The streets in that area are already overpacked with streets, and when the Wheel and Mall are constructed and completed, that will be even more of a problem. And when it comes to parking and late night parties and the overflow of the parking, we've got drunk people walking in front of our houses. Let's see. I have 10 seconds, yes. We're worried about noise, we're worried about trash, and we're worried about the beauty of the building. One thing that the landmarks did bring up was the shingles in the backyard, or the back of the building, that was also a concern, and the letters that I have was signed by 18 other neighbors in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? So, since I haven't seen more than a Form EAF,
Ms. Sherwin, did you give me those letters? Did you submit those letters?
that brings up the issue of parking, because, so what you said is you're going to provide 50 spaces with valet, and that's meets the occupancy, rated occupancy analysis for banquets?
It's under review. The quick estimate was we felt with valet, it could be 50 spaces. I don't know, I mean, we don't have the final plans. I know the plans proposed, I think, show 36 self-parking.
Right.
Based on the figures of the 1 per 8 occupancy, we got the same figure that the board did of 44 spaces would be required for a banquet hall use. I think that was the number that came up. So we fully believe we can reach that 44 level.
Okay.
But that's, as I said, once the architect has that plan, we can adjust things accordingly. And if there's anything that needs to be changed in the EAS we submitted, we can do that, but I don't think it will. Just some points to make, just to reiterate, we are going to have the trash storage on site. That's the plan, and only take it out for collection. Regarding the site's current state, the property owner is going to double check. They're going to set up a regular schedule where somebody takes a look at it. They would like to leave the 2 trailers though, because it makes it easier to maintain what's going on so they can keep cleaning supplies there. Regarding the noise, we'll definitely take a look at the sound attenuation. I don't know what the landmarks requirements are as far as windows, as far as changing what might be there versus the double glazed window, but if it works, I think that's a definite possibility. I know there's restrictions with the exterior, but just to reiterate, overall, we're definitely willing to any condition as far as the 45 decibels and putting that note on the plan and presenting planned measures, but we just want to reiterate that even if we state planned measures, even if those planned measures don't work, they're committed to reaching that level and doing whatever it takes to reach that 45 decibel level. And as regards to hours of operation, willing to agree to any reasonable conditions as far as that. I mean, it is a banquet hall, so they are going to have evening events. We just want to reiterate, there's no intent to have like events till 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning. We can take a look at other facilities in Staten Island in that area, potentially see what their hours are and try and meet and match.
Well, why don't you make a proposal on what the hours are, and then then the neighbors can understand what's being proposed, and we can hear from them and so on. Okay. And then with respect to the paving of the parking area, it's a good suggestion that it be something permeable. Obviously, there's always issues about parking being a source of wasted runoff, right?
I'll bring that up, that issue to the architect.
Okay. And then, okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Great. So, I know you submitted a lot of stuff that we don't have, so I don't know if that addresses things, but you have a lot of
We have a submission from November 20th and January 27th, so I don't know what's in the record regarding that, but we'll review. We can also check with the case examiner just to ensure that what we think is in the record is in the record.
Right, the EAS definitely isn't. Okay. Okay, so how much time do you need? Because you need to look again at your as of right.
The as of right is, I think, the most significant plan change, with the understanding that we're going to need to have that and then adjust the financials. Realistically, I think we could submit in 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay.
If that works with the board schedule.
So submitting in 3 weeks is the same as submitting in 4 because we don't have a hearing on the 7th of April. So our next hearing is, so the next hearing is the 14th. So you could submit on the 31st for the 14th.
Okay. And I think with that extra time, hopefully we'll be able to address everything.
Great.
Everyone's satisfaction.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 2, 157 14BZ, 1151 East 29th Street, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Louis Garfinkel.
414.
Yeah, I heard the executive session yesterday. I think the comments basically are some square footage, which I actually just worked out here. I'm sitting here for 2 hours. So,
So I think you put it to good use.
Yeah, I think we were okay. Maybe the confusion might have been some of the older submission or the newer submissions. So
okay, so what's the answer?
Okay,
As long as we're at it.
Hold on. Oh, the newer submission was correct. There was a typo on the proposed floor area of .8, should have been .76.
Oh, that's right.
It actually had on the line on top. The facts and finding had it right.
Okay, good.
Okay, so-
And how about the open space?
Open space ratio was on both the facts and findings and the zoning analysis at .80. I might move it down to .79, because I'm just sitting here like, sometimes the DOB, I've had the DOB on a decimal point tell me that I'm
They have to
I'm
round
over.
it up. Oh,
Yeah, they rounded it the wrong way, you know, so.
okay.
That's,
So you'll correct the zoning analysis and the plans to agree?
yeah, the zoning, the plans, okay, and the zoning analysis will agree, yes.
Yeah, the sheet, that zoning sheet.
Right, and I think the 6 foot might have been the existing building. You mentioned this.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think in the cellar, judging from what your section, I guess, looked like, was your new portion at 8'6", and then the existing portion was at 6'2", or it's all now on one level?
It's all on one level, yeah.
Okay, and that's at 6'2", or is that?
We're lowering the floor. We have engineering plans.
Okay,
And
all
we've-
right, all right. Yeah, it wasn't clear whether or not, because I think in somewhere it showed it in both. I was wondering if you needed a step down.
Okay.
But otherwise, I had no issue.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you had asked him to revise the statement.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's just, really, you did such a good job with the submission.
Okay.
So get used to this. You answered all the questions in advance of having the questions asked, but the only thing you didn't do is write up your argument in the statement of facts. That's what that's for. So instead of
Okay.
us looking at each one of those things and saying, aha, there's the answer, you're supposed to say, look, attached is the urban cartographics analysis, which goes through the following things and says the following things. So all you have to do is read that, and then you're done, right? So yeah, it'd be really great if you could just amend the statement of facts to pick up all that stuff that you submitted, all those different studies, and then just make.
I always like, is the urban, is a study part of my facts and
Yeah,
findings? Or is it an
absolutely.
addendum?
It's,
How does it?
it's an addendum. It's your consultant
Right.
helping you come to a conclusion.
So I
So don't rely on your consultant to be you. You're you.
Actually, I understand.
Okay, so any other?
Your zoning analysis form should just correct your FAR. I think you just put the open space ratio in there.
Right.
Oh,
It
I
should be
see.
.76.
I see, yeah, that's what happened. Little transcription error.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what that was, okay. Okay,
Do we close it and?
yeah, we
with
can
the-
close
leave
it.
it
But
open?
first, we have to see
Yeah.
if there are speakers. Are there any speakers? Okay, so I'd like to close this rather amazingly. One
Chair
hearing.
Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you. And we have to have a submission date, so
Decision on the 10th.
submit on the 10th?
Submit it on the 3rd, decision on the 10th.
Yeah, that's good. Can you do this?
That's good.
That
Yeah.
doesn't give you a lot of time. It's a week. Can you do that?
It's fine.
Submit on the 3rd.
Did it already.
Decision on the 10th.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Item number
Bravo.
3, 17014BZ, 652, 662 Avenue of the Americas, Mango and La Coviela. Coviello, Anthony Mango.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner and Chair. It's Anthony Mango for the applicant and owner, David Barton Gym. Rather, applicant and tenant, the owner's Mansion Realty. I did review the review session. If I'm correct, I think there was just one issue with respect to it now being a legalization.
Yeah.
The gym was opened on November 8th. There are approximately 1,700 members today. Target is about 2,500. I have the owner and architect here to answer any other questions.
Okay. I don't think there were any other questions.
Nope.
So we can, and I guess the speakers are the owner and the architect, so unless they want to speak.
No, they've been instructed not to speak on this.
There you go. But most of the time, we want architects to speak.
Of course.
Just not this time. Okay, so we can close this. So for a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Decision.
Is there-
Decision date, oh,
Next week's.
next week.
3/3.
Yeah, March 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so you're just going to change the words to legalization and resubmit that? Right?
Yes.
So you should submit that Friday. Friday the 27th.
Will do, thanks.
Great, thank you.
This concludes the public hearing for February 24, 2015. Turn your mics off.